Um, well, how are you doing, guys? Brian, Eric, everything okay on your side?
We're doing relatively well, I would say.
Relatively well, it's always good. What about you, Eric? How are you? What time
Well,
is it over there?
is it over there?
I'm all good. Everything's fine. It is 9 p.m. in the evening.
All right. Yeah, it does
All
take
right.
some
Yeah, it does.
coordination. Oh, I'm hearing a lot of echo from my side coming from you. So yeah, try and mute yourself when you're not talking. The topic of the hour right now is pretty much V2 and everything post V2, or at least that's what I've been focusing on the most when it comes to content and social media. So Brian, would you mind starting with a quick touching base on where are we regarding the development or the release, I should say, of V2?
Yes. We're getting to an exciting point where engaged our auditors. We've talked to a couple of auditing firms, in fact, just to see what is offering out there. We're going to stick with our existing and well-known auditors and soon going into audit with them. We're just making a couple of final changes to our smart, but it's all getting quite exciting for us because engaging with the auditors is a fairly heavy business process because there are items that come out of it and quite a lot of discussion and rework that's required, and we consider their recommendations and then consider what's best for us. So it's quite an interesting journey and quite a heavy engagement. So that's really what's coming up for us at the moment in terms of the audit. Notwithstanding the audit for V2, I'll call it V2.1, there is continuing development on follow-on aspects of V2 or V3, depending on how we call it, ultimately on the final day. Um, so, in short, we've got the audit coming up. Other development is continuing. Um, and yeah, that's really where we're at the moment. So it's quite a milestone point for us. And once we get through the audit, that again will be yet another milestone, and I'll be pushing contracts out onto mainnet. There you go.
All right. Yeah. By the way, I'm running the Telegram chat here next to this window. So if anyone wants to ask something or just comment on anything, I'm reading your comments. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned V 2.1, so wanna give people a bit more clarity on what would, for example, B 2.2 look like, or what would the follow-ups be to the initial release?
Sure. The initial release includes a, a range of items such as additional lender uh, additional lender assets, little additional capital assets, that is. Some so that quite broadens the utility of the platform. Um, and there are a range of additional facilities, including atomic repayments, which again is a precursor, or which is a precursor for supporting some of the follow-on capabilities. Um, and those follow-on capabilities, like 2.1, if you like, include our margin lending and our margin trading capabilities. Um, and then beyond that, we will be supporting pooled collateral. So at the moment, borrow positions are taken out against a single collateral asset, and we're extending that capability whereby a borrower can simply deposit a pool of various assets and as collateral, and then take out any number of loans of different capital against that pooled collateral. So that really opens up quite a lot of flexibility on our leveraged trading facilities also, because our leveraged trading facilities use the core lending logic of the Fringe finance platform. So the greater flexibility we put in there, the more flexible and more capable the other facilities such as our trading become. So in amongst all that, there is a whole host of other really good engineering that we think is quite important to help facilitate further decentralization and censorship resistance of the platform. And particularly that's around our Oracle redesign to ensure that we're better protected against market manipulation attacks, and ultimately will add some facilities that better protect us against malicious oracles as well. So there's quite a number of things that we're looking to roll out. We'll try and batch them up so that we get them out in units that we can all recognize, but we'll figure out the best way to deliver that just as we progress through each of those features.
And we're getting a question here from Crypto Blunder. We can address it now or we can address it later. If there's anything you want to say that goes deeper into what you've been talking about, but he's asking, will asset parameters be different on every chain, or will there be a parameter that unifies all chains' liquidity? Maybe it could be good touching on this right now, because you were also talking about oracles, and I reckon our model has to deal with the fact that we're rolling out on different chains. So over to you.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The lending parameters now need to consider more than just a single platform. Mm-hmm. The way we're looking at the debt limits and the any asset really has liquidity across a number of chains. So really it doesn't matter so much for us as we deploy Fringe to different chains, whether we need to configure the parameters differently on each platform or each chain. Because liquidators will have disposal paths and disposal strategies that will span chains, they recognize the liquidity that exists in other chains, and therefore we won't be constrained to any assets available liquidity on a given chain, because the entire set of chains will be available to liquidators. So I hope that answers your question. Ultimately, it really comes down to our configuration doesn't need to be on a per chain basis.
I see Blunder typing, so we'll hear from him whether he felt his question was fully answered. And again, encouraging everyone listening to participate. You can drop your questions here in the chat. I have it like right next to the call window, so I'll see them live. In the meantime, Eric, anything you want to interject or add? Of course, you're as much of a part of this call as everyone here.
Sure. I seen this asked, I think maybe it was a few days ago randomly in Telegram. Also to do with kind of moving to the different chains. What things are going into consideration for the different assets that get listed on a chain? So say for example we move now to Optimism or to Arbitrum, we have all the assets currently listed on Ethereum. What are the considerations that will allow or confirm that other assets will be usable on the other chains, or what are kind of the things we look for there?
Okay, traditionally it has been two key factors, which is liquidity to ensure that we have less risk of market manipulation attacks, and therefore there'll be a threshold of liquidity we'll be looking for Additionally, we have been looking for Chainlink price data feeds for these tokens, and they really have been the driving factors in us deciding what we list on the Ethereum mainnet. Initially, it will also be that with regard to any other chain we roll out, but something I alluded to a couple of minutes ago is our new price oracle capability. We're extending that so that we can support Uniswap 3 v3 type data feeds. So our dev team are in the process of building that at the moment. We've put a design together, and we might write an article about the design for that because it's quite neat, we consider. And so what that means is there's one new consideration for selecting assets on any of the chains, including Ethereum, which will be now it is no longer just restricted to Chainlink data feeds. It will be extended to Uniswap v3 type feeds and their clones. So that opens up a number of opportunities on other chains. What else is relevant there? Yeah, so really it will come down to whether there is a Chainlink or a Uniswap v3 feed for a given token, as well as its liquidity. We still want some good liquidity because we've got some added protections against market manipulation attacks. But we still will have thresholds with regard to how much we can tolerate in terms of low liquidity and the volatility of any given market. There you go.
I in particular, I'm very interested about the Oracle model because, of course, part of the larger Fringe finance vision is to list in to enable DeFi access to as many assets as possible. And as such, well, the new Oracle model helps us surpass a limitation that we had before that was only listing assets that were supported by Chainlink. So if we are, I wouldn't say struggling, if we're constantly working on addressing market manipulation attacks, what type of solution are we envisioning? Or how has our initial design of the solution changed from how it is currently? I think I said it that backwards. Has changed from how it was initially and how it is now compared to the initial design of it.
Yes. Okay. So our price oracle at the moment, we take a feed from Chainlink, and we by and large trust what Chainlink is providing us. In a lot of instances and many platforms, probably quite reasonably trust Chainlink. However, we believe that we need to add resilience to the Oracle price feeds because there is increasing noises from various authorities globally about the intention to attack various parts of DeFi. And one of the areas that could be attacked would be price oracles. So part of our strategy is to remove and reduce the reliance that we have on centralized actors such as Chainlink. So how this actually gets done is we now take a price feed and we treat it in various ways. We first of all govern the price movement so that we accept only a certain maximum movement of a price, and therefore that attempts to partly address market manipulations either up or down. See, market manipulators can manipulate up, in which case they'll be able to take out loans on platforms greater than the value of their collateral. Because if they manipulate the value of their collateral up, it looks
Right.
like they've got a lot more collateral and therefore borrowing capacity. And also they can manipulate prices down and therefore potentially force liquidations and receive borrowers' liquidated collateral at a discount. And therefore that's an issue for borrowers. So those kinds of attacks are possible. And we're introducing a number of treatments to address that. So first of all, as I mentioned, there's that price governing. The next is we put it through a TWOP of our own, a long series TWOP, so that we get a raw price feed, our governed price, and then convert that to a governed price. And then we create a long TWOP. And then we take the minimum of the long TWOP and the governed price. Yeah, and you'll see the article on this that will describe it in further detail. And the minimum there, again, attempts to minimize the attack of upward price market manipulation. That is probably the greatest threat to a lending platform because it can make the platform insolvent. So whereby loans are taken out by an attacker and there is not sufficient liquidity or not sufficient collateral to secure those loans once the price reverts after an attack. And then we've got a number of other treatments whereby we force the requirement for there to be certain price points throughout the lifetime of the long TWOP to ensure that they're not all bunched up in a short period right near the current moment. Because if all of the price series were logged at that point, that means the TWOP would be unduly influenced by a cluster of prices that could be in that small duration of time where an attacker is forcing a price manipulation attack on the market. So there are a number of things, and there's certainly further detail in all of that, but this design is intended to ensure that we have greater resistance and resilience against market attacks, and therefore we can begin to employ other price feeds such as Uniswap v3. And it's quite important from a decentralization and censorship resistance philosophy to ensure that we get all of these things right and have good strategies for that, because we believe that, DeFi, its defining value proposition is its censorship resistance. So part of our job is to ensure as much censorship resistance as we possibly can.
Yeah,
There you go. For all those who wanted to know a little bit about price oracles, but were too afraid to ask, there you go.
I'm always interested in price oracles. Like I could probe you on that one endlessly, but I see people asking some questions about marketing. I'm not ignoring the questions higher up there, but just to give Brian a chance to catch his breath, I'll take on a couple of the marketing questions. So I'll just pick the first one. Will a stronger marketing push going to be okay? Is a stronger marketing push going to be coordinated with the V2 release? Yes, we are very interested in increasing the awareness of our protocol with the release of V2. You're also asking further down how much of a priority marketing is for Fringe Finance. And I think the questions go hand in hand. Having a better product means that you're also likely to have a better or easier time marketing it. And in marketing, very few things are completely guaranteed. but you can make a case that if you go to the market with a superior product that offers people something that the well-established competition does not offer, you're definitely going to have a greater chance of them paying attention to you. So yes, that is something that we are considering internally in the marketing team. How do you market now that you will have better interest rates? How do you market now that the Oracle model is going to make you able to onboard a whole new number of assets and so on and so forth with all the different features added to with V2. Um, there are also questions about. I hope that answered the previous questions. If not, let us know in the chat. There are also questions about the introduction of fee distributions from the platform's activity. And well, I think it's important to point out that before any substantial distributions take place, the platform needs to be generating fees and needs to be generating revenue, which it currently at its state of adoption isn't. So before that is considered and before those features are prioritized, of course, first the operational features need to be taken into account. Um, is the adoption of the platform going to be the number one focus on marketing attempts? Um, yes, of course, that's the number one goal. I mean, the marketing of Fringe Finance primary goal is to have new users for Fringe, and we have a decent chance of doing so with our vision because while attempting to list as many assets as possible, we're also opening up the space to reach out to as many different communities as possible. That means more people to reach out to, more people to educate about Fringe, a larger target market. Um, that those are positives. So I would say that within the design of the Fringe identity and vision, it comes a very clever opportunity to market it intrinsically. So that is pretty good for us as marketing guys. Anything you would like to add there, Eric or Brian?
I think one thing just with regard to, Eric, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, just short and sweet. Yeah, I agree with basically everything what Carlos was saying, and yeah, we do have the kind of approach where at the moment we market something that is to come. However, when the platform is released in the V2 form that we're in the audit stage now, we'll also have the platform there to market behind. So that will also be a nice increase in that regard. But yeah, otherwise, I agree with everything Carlos was saying.
Yeah, I agree, Carlos.
Okay. Um, and then there's this other point in your series of questions, very good questions, by the way, um, where you're saying you do recognize the value of anti-censorship infrastructure and utility, but others need to know, though, for the platform to take off and start bringing in revenue. I think that's a decent. I mean, that's a very good thing to point out that, yes, of course, there needs to be a balance between building infrastructure that can be censorship resistant and going to market. And it'd be good to hear from Brian. How do you guys conceive this balance in between, yeah, building stuff that is as decentralized as possible, and of course, trying to ship a product, take it to market, make it as good as possible?
Yeah, well, any platform is, well, our intention is to, as far as possible, differentiate ourselves in the marketplace so that we have as many aspects of the offering that is of interesting to as many potential users as possible. So it maximizes the potential for adoption of the platform, differentiates us from competitors, and means people will be more interested in our platform. So I think those series of questions are quite spot on in respect of, sure, it's great to have good product that differentiates in the marketplace, but ensuring people know about it is another thing, because people won't adopt it unless they're aware of it. And so marketing comes into play there. So our marketing will be, I think there'll be multiple tiers to it. We'll have content that really presents Fringe from its core capabilities perspective. So if people are seeing some of this marketing and advertising material, they'll be able to conceptualize it as a lending platform and conceptualize it with other high-level features that we're including within the platform, such as leverage trading and so forth. With regard to the more detailed aspects, such as the censorship resistance aspects that we're building in, including decentralized backends and so forth, we will be continuing to release material around that, particularly in our blog, that will describe this in detail. And we will also release some of the design documentation. I think we'll refer to that in the articles in our blog, and I think it will give people greater visibility of really what's under the hood there. So from an engineering and from where people are interested in the technology behind this, we can make that available for that cohort of users to be aware of really how it hangs together.
Mm-hmm. There's then this next question. What's the status of operation funds? Last time it was spoken about, I remember there were enough funds to last for a bunch of years. Want to take this one, Brian?
Funds look good, and there's certainly a significant treasury, which really hasn't been touched. And we do have an angel on this project where Paul funds this out of his own pocket. So our job is to deliver this utility and market it in such a way that it builds up its adoption and the platform can collect fees to fund itself ongoing. So my view is there is no risk of that. Well, I should say the risk is small because there's always risk in life. But the intention from a marketing and a product development is to get a product out there that will gain traction and adoption, and therefore derive and collect platform fees to ensure that it becomes self-sustainable. So, there are plans in place for that. But there's sensitivity testing in all of those plans, because it's really impossible at this point, until we get product out there or further product out there and gain the adoption, to more accurately determine what the actuals in terms of adoption and revenue that will arise from the release of these new capabilities on the platform.
Right on. And yes, I think that is all of the questions that are currently on the chat. So feel free to drop more, guys. We are reading all of your questions as always. Eric, any questions from your side to Mr. Brian here, or to anyone else?
Yeah, I wonder if anyone maybe from the chat wants to come up on the stage, or we can guess. I guess we have the questions in the Telegram. Otherwise, no, all good from my side.
Okay, yeah, that as well. If you guys want to request to speak, and if you want to come on stage and talk to us, as always, feel free to. Another thing we've been building. Okay, sorry, Ryan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think there's just one little thing uh, might be worthwhile mentioning will be the ambassador program and how that fits into the overall adoption and marketing approach.
Yeah, let's hear it from Eric himself.
Yeah, actually, as soon as as soon as I muted my mic again, I thought of something else. Maybe that actually also was in the community the last few days. But yeah, for the ambassador program, we had a, I would say, soft launch. So it's always testing with everything, slow and steady. So at the beginning of the month, we started it off. We got some really nice and active community members that have been active anyway since a long time for Fringe, Crypto Blunder, Rafa, DeFi for everyone. Um, yeah, they're all here also in the chat, so it's really nice to see. And yeah, we've been coordinating our efforts, getting the Fringe V2 message out there to the listed collateral assets, just to kind of slowly tease that something's coming, to kind of warm them up for the next stage for when the actual platform is out in its new form. It's been going quite nice. We've had some great discussions in that chat, also planning and preparing also a bit more for the launch and when the platform's actually live. And yeah, it's been really nice, really refreshing. And I'm looking forward to the next stages of the program. We will be structuring it more formally over the next few months as time goes on to entice new members and new marketers to join. And yeah, I'm looking forward to where it goes. And yeah, I think it's been a great start. We've learned a lot this month and getting ready for the next month. Being quite active on Twitter. And yeah, just getting a feel for everything. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next few months to accompany and help all the other marketing activities. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, when talking
Thanks,
about
Eric.
adoption, it's very important to mention these kind of initiatives and what the community can do. There is a big component of community in crypto, as we know. So having people that are everyday users, not team members, go and talk to others uh, that are supporters of other projects, that's always very helpful, and that's the best way of marketing through person to person conversations and word of mouth. So encouraging everyone here that's interested in joining the ambassador program to get in touch with Eric here or Constantine, and I'm sure there'll be something there for you. um, Brian, now trying to go into the content territory. What can people expect us to start releasing in the coming, let's say, in the coming couple months?
What do you mean by content there, Carlos?
Oh, we're thinking about dropping a couple of articles, aren't we? About the more in-depth analysis of the features that we're trying to launch. So yeah, also asking for my own information on my own pipeline.
Okay, let me just have a quick look because I have a number of those. Um,
For those who do not know, yeah, Brian works behind the scene on tech, articles, documentation, and now country music, apparently.
ah, I, I've been playing music for years. I play a whole bunch of different styles, but so that country was just one example.
This is pretty good stuff. One day you will be playing
Yeah.
songs on the Fringe Jacket.
Um, okay, let's just have a look. Okay, so I will be finalizing a number of documents that describe each of the components that we've referred to here and also refer to in our V2 announcement from last month. I think it's quite important that we describe each of these elements and there is some good reference to them. So upcoming, let's just have a quick look. V2, let's just have a quick look. Okay, I don't have my notes in front of me here, sadly.
We had
But,
some
We can do a
videos
fly.
as well.
yeah. Yes, so it will include a number of articles, as well as we'll make some reference to our design documentation, also a number of videos, and I think the rest of the team also will be producing a couple of videos that highlight various new features and capabilities of the platform. So, that's fairly general, but for example, there'll be documentation that will describe, as I mentioned before, our price oracle improvements, that will describe how we support multiple capital assets, how we support multiple chains, also what our decentralized backend is all about and really how that works and what it means for users. Additionally, our margin trading capabilities. So a number of these do quite neatly allow us to produce some fairly focused content so people can chew on that if they're interested in that. And, we're intending to release all of that because there is a cohort of nerds that want to understand in certain greater detail how aspects of the platform really work. And yeah, that's what we're intending to do there.
I am just noticing that there's a question that I didn't ask here, so I'll just go back to that one. Is there any changes regarding the utility of the Fringe token? As far as I know, the answer to that is no. But what role will it play in leverage trading? And I guess that's kind of saying whether we plan to list it for leverage trading. Would be good to hear your thoughts on that.
Ultimately, once there is sufficient liquidity on Fringe, and we envisage that will be the case at one point in time, yes, we'll be able to list Fringe token as both a lending token and also a capital token. So that will make it available for borrowers and lenders, as well as for traders on the leverage trading platform. So ultimately, in the fullness of time, yes, I think that will be the case. But that's the same set of considerations as any other token need to be considered, because our job is to do everything we can to best assure the security of the platform and its solvency. And so it'll be threshold liquidity that really drives that decision for listing Fringe. But in terms of utility of the token, well, it is a governance token. And so ultimately what that means is people have the opportunity of directing the project. And that is, in all senses of the word, including any revenue opportunities that are derived from holding the token and that revenue share of fees collected by the platform. So that's just like any other governance token, because governance tokens are held by people with the future expectation of revenue opportunities. So many of the governance tokens out there in the wild, they actually don't deliver a revenue share as yet, but people still are very happy and keen to hold on to those tokens because of that prospect of future revenue opportunities, both for themselves if they're looking to hold long term, but also because that represents a force to ensure buoyancy in the market of that token.
Correct. Yes. And one such example of that kind of token would be, I guess, the Uni token. A lot of people see that possibility in the horizon and think that their Uni tokens will grant them the right for fee distributions and they hold on to them. It's important to mention that our community sometimes is very focused on the fee distribution side of the Fringe token, but like you said, let's keep in mind that it's also a governance token, and its most important use case will be to serve for people to issue their opinion and direct the governance of the platform. Um, if there are more more questions from people, please drop them on the chat. Otherwise, I would say that we could be on our way to closing the call after a very good 45 minutes of conversation here. Is there anything that you guys would like to take the chance to say to the community, Brian, Eric?
I think I've carried on just about enough, Carlos.
All right. What about you, Eric? I know you have some thoughts on your mind.
I know you have. I think I could listen to for another 45 minutes would be fine. I love talking about stuff. Yeah, maybe some kind of update in regards to our zkSync launch. I think all the other chains we've kind of covered on, but that's been mentioned a bit the last few days in the community.
Okay, yeah. Since we're not talking in the format of tweets here, and you're gonna all the nuance and explanations to your answers here that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. Would you just mind giving people a short explanation on the current standing of the situation with zkSync and what are we doing to solve the issue, Brian?
Yes. So zkSync have got a wrinkle that is affecting a number of developers, and their wrinkle is integration with the graph. They report an incorrect error code, and that causes the graph to not respond in the way that we need. So both the graph and zkSync are resolving this, because I think ultimately it will require a bit of coordination between the two. But we are in three-way chats with these guys, and we've got quite a team of people working on this. And it's something that doesn't affect just Fringe Finance. There are other teams affected by this. So we're just working with them to provide as much information as we can that might be relevant for them, which is, running our end solution on the updates that they provide. They believe they have the final solution on that. So we're just, working with them and waiting for them to push that through. But it doesn't require any change on our part. We're just giving them feedback to ensure that they build or deliver something that is compatible with the rest of the platforms and the way we integrate with those and the way other devs integrate with those platforms as they are documented. So they're just varied a little bit from the documentation, the way the solution is documented. But, that's probably, it's probably the kind of detail that might be relevant here. But yeah, we're looking to finalize that because our contracts are all working on zkSync. It's just a bit of integration with our decentralized backend.
And for those of you that are not too familiar with the graph is pretty broadly used. Decentralized infrastructure for projects as backend. So it's not really only Fringe that's suffering because of this issue that's native to zkSync, but it's also, we suspect, a whole bunch of projects that are in the same situation. So it's in zkSync's best intentions, and same for the graph, to solve this problem. We do not doubt that there will be a solution to this, but the issue is on their hands currently. Would you, just for the sake of closing this tangent, would you mind just explaining what we use the graph for exactly?
Yes. Okay. So the graph is all part of overall strategy for censorship resistance, and what it quite often with a DApp, Web3, a DeFi app, is there will be the smart contracts sitting on chain. There will also be the front end application, and that front end application interacts with the smart contracts. But there'll also be a back end that will have certain configurations and serve certain purposes, such as providing access to APIs, centralized APIs, and other statistical, it'll collect other statistical information to present it to the front end. Now, what we do with the graph is we remove our centralized backend and we use the graph to populate any statistics that we want to present on the front end. For example, our markets and the history of our markets and so forth, as well as history of user interactions with the platform, now get stored in a decentralized repository and served up in a consistent manner via the graph protocol. So that's part of the mechanics of the way that works, so that it gives us the opportunity to remove the back end. And what that means with regard to censorship resistance is there's just one less point that any either ideological infrastructure hosting provider or authority can put their finger on and switch off. So that means we become more and more resistant to any third-party attacks such as that. And ultimately, we want to ensure that our front end also is decentralized so that anyone has the opportunity of running the front end. And it will be hosted, for example, at this point, on IPFS. Even though there are some performance matters with IPFS, I think we can overcome those. But that's all part of that strategy, which is decentralization, further decentralization, and further censorship resistance. We take that as seriously as we think every good DeFi protocol should.
Yeah, great, great little tangent there, and good to have a chance to explain this more in depth to the community that might be wondering what's the status with zkSync, but there's always a lot of info that needs to be put into tweets, and condensing them often leads to misinterpretations, as we saw with the Chainlink community last week. Which, by the way, no offense was meant towards Chainlink as a project. That was just meant to be an explanation of an issue that occurred.
Yeah, we also had a call with Chainlink today, and yeah, all fine. Talking about the months that are to come for V2, and it was a nice catch up.
Yeah, they're always they're good people, and we're always in touch with them. They give, I would say, very good support to projects that integrate their solutions. So shout out to Chainlink. No beef between both projects. And all right, guys, that's almost the hour here. So why don't we say we close this call? Thank you very much to everyone that joined, to Brian and Eric for participating, everyone who dropped questions. And yeah, if you want to ask any follow-up questions, we're always in the Telegram chat. If you want to join the ambassador program, feel free to get in touch with Eric here, who's surprisingly always online. And also reach out to me if you have any other follow-ups. So thank you very much. Thank you for the time, guys.
Great.
All the best,
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a
And
nice
thanks.
weekend.
See you.
Bye-bye.
All right. See you.